Okay, welcome. Thank you, Reinhardt. We're a integrator in the United States, and we use a lot of his stuff, which has been great, especially in projects like water monitoring. So I'll talk about it in a little bit. My name is Scott Waller, CEO and co-founder of Thingy IoT. If you saw the keynote this morning, you probably saw the little video, Mr. Thingy, Mr. Wildfire. So I'm going to walk you through kind of the journey, a little more detail of what we've been working on here. My background is I spent 25 years in tech, Cisco, Amazon, Microsoft, building some of the highest speed networks in the world for the cloud data centers. And since 2019, when I left the big corporate environment, decided to take this on my own. I now make the slowest networks in the world at about 400 baud. So we love the technology, but it's on both ends of the spectrum. Got to keep it funny. It's at the end of the day here. As well as outside of it in my career is what really led to kind of the passion behind wildfires is myself and my wife, who's sitting right here with me, just kind of cool, we were volunteer firefighters for years. We actually met at a firehouse. We spent years in the ski patrol community. And so I've built sensor networks in really remote areas of ski resorts, avalanche education, LoRaWAN networks, Zigbee networks, you name it. So the passion is there to take the technology and knowledge that I've learned over the years and apply that to really, really hard use cases in remote areas. So, kind of the tagline here is we know climate change. I'm not going to debate climate change. I'm not going to debate who causes it. There is no sensor in the world that can prevent fires and natural disasters. But what we can do is build sensors and technologies and work with the folks who apply new technologies for new insights in how to battle both the risk, association, human health, etc. And so we know that wildfires are big. You see it all over the media. If you're in an area like California, right, the biggest wildfires in the world are happening down there. They're not just impacting our daily lives as humans and the health and people and property are dying, but also it's affecting industries like agriculture. And so we'll talk about this. But definitely not here to debate any of that stuff. What we're doing is how we're trying to focus on advancing tools and technology for researchers who are making the policy decisions to apply that to actual response. And in my travels over the last couple of years, so in 2017, we won a tech challenge via the United States Environmental Protection Agency to develop an air quality sensor specifically designed to detect wildfire smoke as a tool for researchers, but actually to be out there on the front line. And a part of that, though, is in these travels, I talked about in the agriculture session today, that connectivity is not guaranteed in the Western United States. The majority of the fires are happening in very rural areas. It's a challenging environment. The terrain is very remote. Cellular technology sitting on the mountainside might not reach down to the valley where the firefighters are actually responding, or that the researchers want to make a decision on whether to evacuate a community or not. So connectivity is a challenge, and LoRaWAN has been a great technology for me as an integrator, a device manufacturer, and a supplier to actually get extended connectivity in really remote areas. And it's not just LoRaWAN. We're using cellular technologies. We're using the latest and greatest in satellite. We're partnering with the latest in the lower satellite community, both on the LoRaWAN side and others like Swarm and Lacuna and Wild Networks. So it kind of sets the baseline. Won't go into this too much. But this is a fire, post-fire in Eastern Oregon just last summer. So we were doing some post-fire forest reforestation sampling air monitoring because after a fire, the forest and the fuel continue to off gas. So we wanted to see what are the workers being exposed to during that period of time. So who are we? I kind of talked about this briefly, but Thingy is really three things. We build our own sensor, specifically around air quality and wildfires. And we really help researchers in that space. Because the providers, there's not a lot of them, especially at the carrier level in the United States. We have to create new networks, so we operate our own networks. And then we're an integrator in the LoRaWAN ecosystem. I mean, we all love the power of the ecosystem that I make one sensor for a very discrete use case, but there's an entire set of sensors out there, whether that's a decent lab stuff for flood monitoring and weather microclimates to the others that are in the ecosystem that I can pull from and say, hey, we're going to collectively use these sensors together that are cheaper than the very expensive scientific grade sensors in order to solve the problem at a lower cost. one of our focus areas, or several of our focus areas, are environmental monitoring, which we're talking about, agriculture, public safety, and then obviously the scientific research. So our sensor, the famous Thingy sensor, it's called Thingy AQ for air quality. It was originally designed around the EPA's Tech Challenge. Robust, measure particulates, ozone, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and volatile organic compounds. These are byproducts of combustion. So can we tell also in a robust device that is firefighter proof, as we say, right? Firefighters are focusing on the risk and tactical, they're attacking the fire. That's their primary focus. Trying to analyze how to turn on a device is not their number one focus. If it doesn't work, you're going to throw it out and push it aside. But really a robust grade sensor that can be deployed out in the field to detect these byproducts of combustion. We worked very closely with the U.S. Forest Service, NASA, and definitely the Environmental Protection Agency. Right? The whole idea was we're not reinventing chemical sensors, but we are repackaging and building solutions together around the appropriate scientific methodologies in order to calibrate these and coordinate the output of multiple different sensors. So say there's not any one company that produces a particulate sensor and 7 different gas sensors in one device. We've selected the best end elements that, with consultation with some of the best air quality researchers in the world, combine those together in a single data logging system and build the telemetry with that in an entire solution that is basically plug and play in the end. But it's not without lots and lots and lots of hours of validation against the regulatory and reference sensor at this regulatory level. Partnership with the EPA, et cetera. There's some new standards, right? So just to give you a sense, this site here in Boise, Idaho, I was out at last summer. My sensors are actually still there. There's $10 million in air quality sensors in this entire site. This thing that I'm sitting on is a giant Connex container. There's another one right there. These are the regulatory grade gas and particulate sensors. There's millions of dollars of equipment there. But it's a reference site that we're using to validate in an ambient study based on a new level of standards the Environmental Protection Agency is saying. Here's the $50,000 sensor. Here's the $300 backyard nuisance sensor, but it's more for crowdsourcing. What is in between? And that's what we're trying to target. Really enable the researchers again with a lower cost device so they can distribute even more sensors and get better spatial variability of the data. So what can we measure? A lot of elements. Anyone familiar with PM 2.5 or AQI? Yes, we all are. It's kind of like it's in our natural language, especially if you're around wildfires. We measure that 1, 2.5, 4, and 10 micron. The sensor on the right, the big white box, is about a $30,000 sensor. It's the regulatory grade sensor. It measures on a little filter disc. They pre-weigh this disc in nanograms. It samples air over 24 hours, sucks in all the particulates in 24 hours. Then they go weigh that again, and they give the mass of the actual particles that are there. We're using new technology that is laser scatter particle sensors or optical particle counters. And we combine that with a bunch of gas sensors. So again, the byproducts of combustion, CO, CO2, ozone, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, VOCs, methane, and we're going to be doing formaldehyde soon. So lots of stuff. Again, all in one discrete package. And the scientists love it because it's one data output over LoRaWAN, pre-modeled, data normalized, ending in the cloud, and they have a large data set they can pull from. So one of the projects we did really quickly, this was last summer, the EPA said, okay, great, we've got these, we validated it, we love the source of the data, we love the reliability of it, you're a great partner, can you build us a couple dozen of these portable kits? Because they're communities where the connectivity is poor, but also they don't, in rural communities, if you look at, especially in the agriculture environment, or you look at some of these communities to where the fires are happening, your local air quality sensor by your regulatory body is 150, 200 miles away. It doesn't represent your air quality at your local area. Hence the emphasis on crowdsourcing over the years. So could they have something that is on loan from the government that during a wildfire event, a local tribe, a local county or city can borrow it, get data, and in partnership with the Environmental Protection Agency, get an analysis as well. And so we actually, with this, it's a Pelican case, it's a sensor, it's a tripod, all solar powered. And the LoRaWAN gateway is actually included in it. I built it in an entire package. It's a tactilic device. It's packaged in a pelican case as well. And guess what? It's solar powered with LTE as a backhaul. So the idea here is they're putting a gateway at the top of a mountain to where you have cellular connectivity, and it's extending LoRaWAN coverage down into the valley where the sensor is actually lying, right? Because smoke likes to sit low, especially at night when it cools. Another one was agriculture and safety. So we have farm workers out there that just so happen to be harvesting, and it's a very big smoke event that comes through. So there's new regulations. They've been around for a couple of years in California. Washington and Oregon last year just established if the AQI is here, you got to have your employees, your workers during harvest season, which just again happens to be during wildfire events, they have to mask up. But if it gets too high, there's some heat exposure stuff as well. You can't have them work. Well, as a farmer, you have to decide, do I harvest now? Do I harvest later? Because I can't put my workers in harm's way, because these are now L&I, or labor and industries, the regulatory industrial insurance folks at the state level are enforcing this. So we worked really closely with the occupational researchers at the University of Washington who helped define those standards and said, well, let's pause a little bit until we do more research and enable the communities to actually get better air quality data. So the farmers know this is a really good source of data. Not that the air quality is bad 100 miles away and now it's telling me I can't do, for audit reasons, I can't send my workers out. So we're working with the researchers there. The green dots are regulatory sites, and that area that I just circled, one of the largest wine producing regions in the state of Washington. Those little triangle dots in between, those are my sensors. There's about 50 miles between all those green dots. So the areas that were not covered by air quality monitoring yet, they have this rule now that says you can't put your workers in place if it's too smoky. So we put sensors locally in the area. Which leads to, okay, you're out there. I was sitting down with a bunch of buddies one day who owned a vineyard, and they said, who likes their wine? Well, we are in Paris, right? Smoke is causing what's called smoke taint in wine. So what's happening is these particles from local fires, not something we're up in Washington and smoke that's traveled through the upper atmosphere and oxidizes, it's in transit, and then it's deposited on, it's either ambient in the air or it's deposited on leaves and stems and the grape skins themselves. But local fires, the little creosote particles in 1 micron, they're actually being deposited on the grape skins. They're being absorbed into the genetic structure. And then when you actually ferment the wine, it causes these volatile phenols, these really bad ones. And smoke taint is bad. It's worse than a corked wine. It smells like a wet ashtray. So the researchers, they came to me and said, listen, you're great with working with researchers. You've got this newest device you've built and worked with the Environmental Protection Agency and the Forest Service. We need to know what type of smoke is affecting us in these areas. Do you have a sensor that can kind of be a Swiss Army knife or a net and cast a wide net and go, we need to know what it's all being exposed to. And then through chemical analysis after fermentation, we're trying to work on a multi-year study funded by the Department of Agriculture to really understand the linkages between the two. And then in the end, the end goal is to provide, okay, and then what can we do to remediate that? How do we tell a grower, you've got smoke, it's the bad smoke you're concerned about, this is what you can do, apply a coating, wash it off, blah, blah, blah. So it's a multi-year project. I get to travel in vineyards all over the world. My wife loves it, but I'd never bring home wine, because I'm always out in the field. And then finally, I can wrap up, because I think I'm almost out of time, is the smoke characterization study. So we know smoke's out there. We know there's particulates. But what's in that smoke? What's harmful to crops? What's harmful to workers? What's harmful to the public? But also, what's harmful to the firefighters who are actually out on the front line? Amazingly, a firefighter will be out there for an 8-hour or 10 or 24-hour shift, and they'll have to go back to base camp to go recuperate and get their carbon monoxide levels down in their blood system, right? So they don't get carbon monoxide poisoning. They're supposed to be resting there. Oh, wait, there's a bunch of smoke at base camp. So what are the firefighters being exposed to on the front line? What are the research being exposed to? So there's a fire lab in MISSOULA, Montana, the Forest Service, in partnership with the EPA. We all got together. I was fortunate to be actually there in person. There's millions and millions of dollars of equipment up here. There's everything from ammonium oxide to hydrogen sulfide to formaldehyde sensors, particulate sensors from multiple vendors. There's sensors that are over $1 million that measure just formaldehyde. And we basically take this, hey, get close. We take this entire chamber that's 1 million cubic feet. It goes 40 some feet tall. Burn a little fire with a defined set of fuels. We repeated it 40 different times over multiple weeks. Build a little fire, spin some fans, homogenize the air in the building, and let these sensors just absorb all the data, all these sensors at one time. And then the researchers have spent the last year correlating and calculating all the data and what's actually in the smoke based on different fires, fuel moisture, et cetera. So it was a really cool project that continues. This is the 3rd year running. We're probably going to do it again this summer. And then the results will be published in a bunch of peer-reviewed papers. But it also is helping drive some awareness to actually what's in smoke. Not necessarily a big fire in the middle of nowhere in a ponderosa pine in California, but what happens when you get that fire gets really, really close to urban environments, and now you're burning paint and cars and tires and mattresses and stuff like that. Then in all of this, right there, I built a LoRaWAN network just in this facility, and we connected dozens and dozens of sensors, both ours and others from the LoRaWAN ecosystem. Everywhere I go, I'm bringing LoRaWAN with me to connect it because it's the only way. It'll be one place will have LTE, one place will have satellite. It's just not guaranteed. So I'm always bringing LoRaWAN with me. And then once I do that, especially in agriculture, once you finish that with an air quality sensor, you solve the one problem. Oh, wait, I want some weather sensors. I want some water quality sensors. I want, stuff from the decent lab guys. I want some soil moisture characterization. So that is my talk. A little bit of fire. That's what we do. If you have any questions, I think that's where we're going next, right? Thank you.